Before this story begins, take a second to subscribe. Some stories aren't meant to entertain. They're meant to open your eyes. She texted me at 4:17 p.m. Running late. Client meeting at a rooftop bar. Might be noisy. I remember the exact words because something about them felt rehearsed. Like a line she'd practiced before sending. Her name was Lena. We'd been together for 4 years. Lived together for 2. Long enough that I could usually hear the truth in her tone, even through a screen. I replied with a simple, "Okay. Have fun." That wasn't a lie. I was already downtown for a meeting of my own, and the building she mentioned was only 3 blocks away. The kind of place with a glass elevator on the outside and a rooftop everyone pretended was exclusive. I'd been there once before years ago with her. She'd said she loved the view. I finished my meeting early. Too early to go home, too early to sit in traffic. So I walked. No plan. No suspicion I was willing to admit to myself. Just a quiet pull in my chest I'd learned not to ignore. By the time I reached the hotel, the sun was starting to drop. The lobby smelled like expensive cologne and citrus cleaner. I nodded at the front desk, stepped into the elevator, and pressed the button for the rooftop. The doors opened to laughter. Not wild laughter. Controlled. Polished. The kind people use when they're being watched. I stepped out slowly, scanning the space the way you do when you don't expect to see anyone you know, and then suddenly do. The bar wrapped around the edge of the roof, lights low. City stretched out behind it like a backdrop. Groups clustered everywhere. Business casual. Drinks in hand. Conversations leaning just a little too close. And then I saw her. Lena was standing near the railing, her back half turned, one hand resting on the bar. She wasn't dressed for a meeting. No blazer. No work bag. Just the black dress she usually saved for dinners that mattered. Her hair was down. The way I liked it. The way she knew I liked it. A man stood beside her. Close enough that their arms brushed when he laughed. He leaned in when she spoke. Not to hear her, to feel included. She smiled at him. It wasn't a polite smile. It was the one she used to give me before things started changing. Before the late replies. Before the constant tiredness. Before intimacy became something we scheduled instead of felt. I didn't walk over. I didn't interrupt. I ordered a drink and took a seat 2 tables away, angled just enough to watch without being obvious. That's when I noticed something else. She hadn't texted again. And she wasn't looking at her phone. Not once. I stayed where I was, nursing a drink I hadn't planned on ordering, watching a version of my life play out without me in it. The man beside Lena wasn't young. Mid-40s maybe. Confident in that effortless way men get when they've stopped needing permission. He wore a watch that costs more than our monthly groceries. He touched her elbow when he spoke, not lingering, just enough to test the boundary. She didn't pull away. That was the part that settled it for me. A waiter came by their table. The man ordered without asking her what she wanted. She let him. Another small thing. Another line crossed without resistance. I checked my phone. No messages. No still in meetings. No wish you were here. Just silence. The kind that isn't accidental. I thought back to the last few months. How often she'd mentioned this client. How his name came up casually, always framed as impressive, important, demanding. How she'd started dressing differently on days she met him. How she'd once snapped at me for asking a simple question about her schedule. "You don't need to worry so much," she'd said. "It's just work." I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to. From my seat, I could hear pieces of their conversation. Nothing explicit. Nothing you could screenshot and send to a friend as proof. That's how these things work. It's never the obvious moments that matter. It's the comfort. The ease. The way they'd already slipped into something that felt practiced. He said something that made her laugh harder than the rest. She reached out, touched his forearm this time. Her move. Brief. Familiar. I felt something then, but it wasn't anger. It was clarity. I realized she hadn't lied to me in her text. Not exactly. She was at a rooftop. There was a client. There was a meeting. What she'd left out was the part where I no longer had a place in it. My phone buzzed. A text from Lena. Still tied up. Probably be home late. I looked up at her as I read it. She was leaning closer now, her body angled fully toward him. The city lights reflected in the glass behind them, turning everything warm and unreal. I typed back, "No rush. Take your time." She didn't see me stand. I paid my tab and walked past their table on my way to the exit. Close enough to hear her say his name. Close enough to see the surprise flicker in her eyes when she finally noticed me. Our eyes met for half a second. She froze. I didn't.
I didn't slow down. I didn't acknowledge her. I walked past like she was a stranger I'd once known how to love. Behind me, I heard my name. Sharp. Panicked. Chairs shifted. The man beside her turned, confused, trying to place what had just happened. I stepped into the elevator before the doors closed, giving her no space to explain, no scene to perform. Down in the lobby, my phone started vibrating. Call after call. Then messages. "Wait, what was that? Why didn't you say anything? Please call me back." I put the phone on silent. That night, I didn't go home. Not because I was hurt, but because I finally understood something I'd been avoiding for months. The moment a person starts treating your presence as optional, you stop making it convenient for them. The next morning, I went back to the apartment early, packed my essentials, left everything else exactly where it was. No dramatic note, just a single line on the kitchen counter. I saw enough. By noon, she was home. She called, texted, apologized in fragments. First confusion, then anger, then fear. The usual progression. She said it was just a client, that I misunderstood, that I embarrassed her, that I should have trusted her. She never asked why I'd been there. 2 days later, her tone changed. Softer, desperate. She said she missed me, said she hadn't realized how distant she'd become, said we could fix this, said she'd stop seeing him. That was the moment I knew it was over, because she wasn't upset about what she did. She was upset she lost control of the story. A week passed, then another. I didn't block her. I didn't argue. I just stopped engaging. Silence does something strange to people who are used to being chased. It forces them to sit with themselves. Eventually, the messages stopped. I heard through mutual friends that the client relationship ended, that things got awkward, that he moved on quickly. Men like that always do. They're not looking for complications. She tried once more a month later. Asked if we could talk. Really talk. I replied with a single sentence. I already did. You just weren't listening. Sometimes the truth doesn't explode. Sometimes it just arrives early, sits quietly, and waits for you to notice. And when it does, you don't need revenge. You just need to leave first.